Hello, my name's Liz Watson, and I'm delighted to be here today in film to welcome you to Libraries in the Digital Age. I'm sorry I can't actually be with you. I had planned to do that, but this is such an important topic that I felt it was really crucial that I had my say, if you like. And why do I think this is crucial? Well, I think it's crucial because we're at a time now, at the beginning of the 21st century, where many nations, especially the UK that I'm familiar with, are spending enormous amounts of money on new buildings, and some of those new buildings are libraries. And I wanted to talk to you, first of all today, a little bit about how I see things changing in terms of society and the way people learn that affect the sort of things that we might build. And the starting point, I think, is that I don't think we have a paradigm for the 21st century university as yet. And indeed, we don't have a paradigm for the 21st century library. And let me just tell you what I think is behind that statement. It's partly to do with where I think we are as a society. You'll be familiar with the idea that we've had an agrarian revolution many years ago. We've had an industrial revolution. And we've talked a lot in the last 30 or 40 years about being in the information age. And clearly that's got implications for libraries. It's got deep implications for libraries. And when I talk to people, they often think that the information age is where we are now. But my view is slightly different from that. I think we're actually in the creative age. We're in an age where ideas and creativity are what most modern economies are starting to be based on. And we're in an age where the better a nation is at generating ideas and turning those ideas into products, the better they will be able to compete in the global economy. And that has deep implications for libraries, because what it means is that what we know is much less important than knowing how to do things and knowing why we're doing things. And the question for me is, if that is true, and I believe it is, then can we, in this phase of building new buildings, can we change our education system with those new buildings? Can we create a new way of building that actually changes the way we do? Now, some of the factors involved in that change are to do with what's happening, particularly in higher education, and how many people are participating in higher education. When I went to university, 6% of 18-year-olds attended university, and now, in Western countries, it's of the order of 50%. And really, that's an enormous change. That's an enormous growth in the number of people and the variety of people that attend our universities. And I think that's something we need to consider very carefully when we're thinking about what we do with space and learning space in particular. I also want to give you a little bit of advice at the outset of this workshop. One of the things I want you to be is unhappy. And I want you to be unhappy because actually, if you're a happy person, you're pleased with the way things are at the moment, you're not going to change anything. You're not going to come out of this workshop with any significant change. So be unhappy. And that comes from an idea by John Paul Getty, who says the truly successful businessman is essentially a dissenter. And unhappiness might help you bring some positive results today. So, what's changed, in addition to the participation rate and the fact that the society is now a creative society, that makes me think we ought to think differently about learning? And it's partly to do with something that you're going to hear about in the next part of this workshop, which is the impact of technology and the way students have been using technology. And we know that students are digital natives, that they live on the web, and that they do things differently from the way we do things. And that tells us something about the way they approach the things that they do. And what I want to focus on in that change is the fact that they have a much more playful view of what life is about. To them, learning is play. Learning is not work, it's play. And we need to take that into account when we're thinking about how we design the curriculum and design our spaces. Because play, I believe, will be what work was in the 19th and 20th centuries. So play is the 21st century concept that contributes to the curriculum. And we've also got increasingly used to the idea that knowledge is something that we construct ourselves, that it's about being able to develop your own frameworks of understanding and to use those frameworks of understanding to build your view of the world. And I think in the 20th century we focused mainly on the work of Piaget, which was about constructivism from an individual perspective. I think in the 21st century we're much more interested in the work of Vygotsky, which is constructivism as a group activity, as a social activity. And it's there that I think there's a real opportunity for us to change our education system, because what that says is learning is a deeply social process. And the students that we have today that work collaboratively and use technology positively are capitalizing on the sociality of learning. They're building on the power of working with others in order to develop themselves and develop their understandings. And that's not something we're used to, because we've, in higher education, generally treated people more as individuals than groups. And it's only recently that we've started to focus more on what happens outside the classroom than what happens inside the classroom. And the students that we have today are different from the students that we had in the 20th century. They are independent, self-motivated, self-regulated, collaborative people. And the system that we have, in my view, is one that says you all have to be the same to jump the same hurdles and achieve the same targets in order to succeed. And that can't continue. What we need to do, I think, is have a personalised system, a system that's much more about playing to the strengths and talents of individuals rather than expecting individuals to fit a one-size-fits-all system. And for me, it's about what happens outside the classroom. Most courses in most universities, for every hour that's taught, require students to study for 2 or 3 hours outside the classroom. And I think it's in that time that students become effective learners. And when we talk about lifelong learners, it's that time that develops a generation of lifelong learners. And the particular aspect of that I'm really interested in comes from a quote that I often use from John Seeley Brown that says, all learning starts with conversation. And conversational learning, I think, is the tool that students use to build their own understandings and to relate to other people. And if that is true, if that large block of time outside the classroom is the key to a different type of education system and a different way of learning, I can guarantee that students will spend that time in your facilities, in your libraries. And unless we have a variety of environments in those places that play to the different talents of students, then I don't think we're doing them justice. I think we're actually throwing away probably half of the talent of the people that attend university. So we need to do something that says, let's think imaginatively about how we design that collaborative learning space. And the terminology that we're starting to use is calling that open plan technology-rich learning space. Now, you may be familiar with the work of Howard Gardner on multiple intelligences, and I'm a big fan of that work. Often when people talk about that work, they focus, in my view, on the wrong thing. They focus on whether Gardner's got the right number of intelligences in his theory, or whether they're the correct intelligences. Actually, I don't think it's about that at all. I think this is about recognizing that we are all intelligently different. We all have a different landscape of intelligence. And because we have a different landscape of intelligence, we have different learning needs and different ways of learning. And I think we have to design our curricula and our learning spaces around the fact that we are all intelligently different. And I think that's a really important point to take into account when designing new open plan technology-rich learning space. And just a final thought here in terms of what all this adds up to. I think these thoughts about learning can't, in my view, be ignored. In a creative society, they're absolutely crucial. We need to focus on developing the capability and the talent of every individual. We can't afford to ignore people. We have to include people in our education system. And I think the library, as the intellectual heart of our institutions, has a key role in doing exactly that. The library has to engage every learner and has to strive to make our education system a better system.